Hello, everyone. First of all, it's a very big pleasure to be here alongside with my dear friend Emilia. We're trying to, through this talk, we'll try to kind of gloss over the success story of the student movement to kind of see what we can learn from it. Before I do that, I want to make a small disclaimer in my name, and I'm mostly here, that I've been mostly involved as a researcher, not as an activist, but I was involved within the student movement, so I had an opportunity to look at it from the inside. Thankfully, my friend Emilia is here as one of the most prominent activists within the movement, so she will also be a good complementary talker here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, what we talk about here is most of the people who were mobilized within the movement were ones without the previous political or activist experience. And of course that came as a result of a big tragedy that was a result of a corruption, of shady deals, and not clear procedures regarding the finance and the quality of the constructions within the train station that fell and killed 16 citizens. But the movement emerged despite the dominant control. It became one of the most popular movement or actors within Serbia. And I would like to start with a little bit of imagination or depicting a situation to kind of show the scale, the sheer scale of the success. Just imagine that you're in an amphitheater of the faculty where you study at dusk, around 4 p.m. That's usually when the plenums are. And you're with your buddies who had no prior experience, and you're just talking about the next steps for one of the biggest movements that exists right now in the country. So you're deliberating with each other, listening to each other, you're discussing the next steps under the rules that you design yourselves. So it was not something that was set for you. You were the one who was ownership of the process. You were the ones who created the whole thing. And yeah, I will try to kind of present it by also making a small comparison with some previous movements, especially the movements like Occupy Indignados, Nuit Debout, and Gezi Park movements, which you can see the similarities. But also I will talk about what's new with this movement. And that comes the first lesson, and that is copy, adapt, but also innovate. And yeah, I'll talk about these are the lessons that I would like to kind of more delve into over the course of this talk. And first is being novel. That is the biggest advantage you can have, especially within the context of a hybrid regimes. And that is connected with, the sheer anti-politics feeling that exists among the citizens who don't trust the institutions, who don't trust the system. And being novel, being something that is perceived as not existing before, kind of gives you authenticity, gives you credibility. And it was the case for so many movements before, like the case for the Indignados, who not only marched through the country just like the student movement, and Emilia can talk more about her experience, but also implemented a whole new set of procedures through democratic decision-making, horizontal democratic decision-making through the street assemblies, plaza assemblies, and so on and so on. And also with Occupy said, like, we are the 99%, not you. We are something new. We are the ones that represent everyone. And being this novel means the student did this in several ways. First of all, they said our demands are not political, knowing fully well they are political. But they knew their customers. They said, we need to be something novel. It's something that everyone can accept, even those who vote for the regime party. We need to attract them. We cannot do this change without them. So they knew they have to be above everyday politics. And that, of course, brings some limitation, but also some potential. So what they did is they created the messages that everyone can accept. They are not overly polarizing. And they were summed up in 4 demands that demanded accountability, transparency, and more democratic. So basically rule of law. And they position themselves not as direct opposition to the regime, specifically to President Vučić, but also as an indirect. Somewhere they're not on this scale or the position opposition, they're above it. So that means a bit of a distance from the established oppositional party and definitely a distance from regime party. And that was the first starting phase that kind of enabled them to kind of grow so much popularity, even within those who did not participate, who didn't care about the politics, but also some of them who supported the regime or voted regime in the previous years. So they basically managed to mobilize those who were very oppositional and some of those who were not so oppositional to the regime. And that kind of, so they acted as a sort of a unifying actor. And, and that meant, as I said, that meant strategic anti-politics said, okay, well, we know our customers. Our citizens have low sense of internal and external political efficacy, meaning they don't think they can change something, and even if they try, they don't think that the institutions will respond. There's a deep distrust among political parties, oppositional, and those in the government. So they know, okay, we cannot do it like that. We have to see, okay, our demands are not political; they are just social justice and nothing more, nothing less. So, and they kind of managed to do the anti-politics kind of strategy for them worked really, really well. Although later we'll see it had some limitations. Now the next thing is, of course, how you're going to make decisions. So basically, when we talk about decision-making in times of crisis, we say, oh, we need a strong leader, we need few of responsible persons that will come and they make effective decision-making and so on and so on. Well, the movements before the student movement, like Indignados and Occupy, showed that the use of deliberative assemblies or general assemblies within parks and street assemblies were not just effective, but they were also performative. They kind of invited the ordinary citizen to participate and to be included. So it was also a very powerful symbolic image, not just an effective decision-making, although, as we will see the success story of this movement, it was also very effective. So basically, the student movement in Serbia organized through student plenums. So those were the main general assemblies or deliberative arenas where they all could participate. So basically, it was usually done through faculties. So each faculty had one student plenum, although there were some mixtures, and I think that Emma will definitely more talk about it because it's very diverse. Somewhere it's only university level, somewhere on the faculty. So it's because it's also decentralized and horizontalized, so it gives a lot of creativity in the process. So basically, the plenum was a place where every student of a given faculty could come and deliberate in an equal manner. And for that, they had strict procedures, not rigid, but strict, where you had a moderator, you had a person taking notes, you had clear procedures on when you can get the word, how you can talk, you cannot address directly someone else, you have to talk in general. There were hand signals like in Occupy. I think Emma knows better. This is like, yeah, we approve.
When you agree with something, when you disagree.
Yeah, you can just talk a little
So,
bit about that.
like this, it's when you agree with something, or when you want to like applaud to something, but you don't want like to go, so you just do this. When you disagree, it's like this. When you want to have some technical response to something, you do this. This is for like when you want a word, this is for replica, and this is for questions. And that's it. Thank you.
So yeah, as you see, it was a bit of an elaborate. Yeah, precisely. I like it's catching on really fast. And it's usually, it's really similar to the gestures that have been used in Occupy Wall Street, by the way. So it's very clear inspiration there. So basically, through that, you would have an agenda prior to every plenum. You'll have a set agenda. On the at the end of any plenum, you will have another discussion and vote on the tomorrow's agenda. So it was usually every day at 4 p.m. at a faculty, and it was not just a general discussion of all the students, but also it was an accountability mechanism because you had representatives speaking there, which, as we will see later on, rotate. So we don't have leaders established. So you had, like, for example, working groups within the Plenum of Justice and the Occupy Indignados, by the way. And there was a working group for strategy, for free activities, for protest, for security, and so on and so on. And they would say plenum, they will say, oh, we made decisions on that and that and that. This is our proposal because it will solve this, this, this. And then you had some delegates from the High Council of Delegates on the university level, which were selected each 2 weeks. And they were also rotated, and they will say, oh, on the council we spoke about this, this, and this. This is the proposal from another faculty, and then you will vote on it. So it was really an elaborate, but also very creative and spontaneous kind of event and decision-making process. And as I said, it's complementary to keep it rotating and leaderless, because it's something that previous movements also showed to be very effective against media targeting and against other sort of authoritarian measures that can happen, because of course you can arrest the leader, but you cannot arrest the whole process or the whole movement. So what they did is, as I said, I mentioned those, first of all, let's go with the plenum. So each plenum had a new moderator. You cannot be a moderator for more plenums continuously. At the end of each plenum, or at the beginning, you would choose another moderator for the next session, another note taker for the next session. And also when it comes to working groups, you could be in a working group for, say, a week or two, after which you were rotated by changed by some other student. And they were saying goes for the delegates to the High Council. So that kind of maintained the leaderless characteristic of the movement and made them more equal, more democratic. But also it meant that not one student can keep appearing in the media. So you had also rotation there. The plenum would decide, or the media, or the working group for media would propose someone else, and then the plenum would vote. And so you had a rotation of people who were speaking, who were giving interviews, who were actually speaking at the protest as well. So you had a concentration in every sort of aspect. Of course, it doesn't solve the problem of some students becoming more prominent. It happens as well, but it kind of solves the idea that when they're so much far ahead of the movement that they can easily be targeted by the media controlled by the regime. So this was a very important resilience technique that students kind of maintained up until to this day. And of course, the very important thing is occupy. It is occupy the public space as a sign of not just a symbol of your existence, but also a sign of your power. And when the first attack of the regime supporters happened on the students protesting in the street, it was miraculously how easily they actually occupied their faculties all over the countries, every university, and I think almost every faculty, and still until this day. So it's around 1 year of occupation. And it was very important, because not just for performative things, although of course that was the main thing, but also for logistics, because that's where the plenums were held. It was also a living space, so that's where the democratic life was thriving, where students were actually sleeping in the same room. They were actually maintaining the building. They had the talk outside of the plenum, so it's very, very important. And also that was coupled with such actions such as this. It is the action that I think is still going on, although it's a bit smaller, the intensity. So it was an occupation of the streets for 16 minutes for all the 16 citizens that died, which meant commemorating them with 16 minutes of silence. And as you can see, you had those are probably mostly from the working groups from security with the yellow vests. And so far they've been doing tremendously great job with no incidents and violence. I mean, at least they prevented it as much as they can. And there's also one important case of SKC, or the Student Cultural Center, that happened. And it was very important because the cultural center was taken by the state decades ago from the university and from the students. And then the occupation of such iconic place, I would say, was very important, because that was the place where artists, activists, and students met to co-create together through culture, to exchange the ideas, govern the commons, such as the Student Culture Center, perform participatory art, and then afterwards just deliberate through the plenums of that culture center. So it was very important as another connecting place between various actors that should be working together towards the regime change. Basically, I mean, you could see that those are all the similarities within this movement and the previous movements. However, there are some novelties. As I said, novelty is very important and probably the best, the most biggest advantage you can have. The first novelty was that you had a wide cooperation from numerous actors, and in a form of a citizen gatherings that were established for the first time. We call them zborovi. So they were organized and inspired by the student plenums themselves. And it's like, okay, the students are doing something great. They're actually making decision in a way that we haven't seen before. So that was something really against the political culture in Serbia, that is, passive citizens looking for a strong leader and not getting too much into politics business at all. So the citizen gatherings the zborovi were organized on a municipal or a neighborhood level by the citizens themselves. And of course, they were joined by the students and activists who helped them kind of make those and kind of structure those gatherings and organize them for the first time. And they were very instrumental in organizing a lot of collective actions like blockades of the crossroads, but also during the summer especially, they were really vital for keeping the energy of the movement, because it's also been very often said that the summer is a death of protest politics because of the vacations and so on and so on. But they kept the fire, and now we have a continuation of that struggle. So that was one thing, because it was direct inspiration of the student plenum. It's a very important thing. So it's like, if you do things right, others will copy and follow. The other thing was that students, even though, as I said, this anti-politics characteristic was very influential for them and a very important tool, they managed to not just stick to it, but they managed to kind of not make it a limiting option for them. So after the 15th of March that gathered hundreds and hundreds of thousands of citizens on the streets of Belgrade, never been seen before actually. I think it's even bigger than the one we had on 5th October when the regime of Slobodan Milošević, another authoritarian regime, was toppled down. So when you had that, there was a new change in atmosphere and political atmosphere, and they was like, okay, this is great, but we need another step. Now we need to be more political. So that means entering the electoral arena, even though that is not something new, because Indignados and M15 movement did it when they gave birth to Podemos as a political party of that whole protest. What they did is they made, and they're still making it, the student list, so-called student list, which is a list not consisting of students, but of prominent celebrities, of artists, of activists, of scientists, even some politicians, but not those who are highly ranked. Again, that's the influence of anti-politics, like it or not. Academics and professors as well. So that's really something novel, and a very innovative and very smart idea. We will see how smart when the elections come. But it was smart because it is sort of a continuation of anti-politics kind of narrative. So that's another idea. You have to be coherent in your messaging, something that our oppositional political parties can learn a lot from. But also but also a kind of a change in a political course. So that's why you have to be coherent, but you also have to recognize the timing, change of tides, and adapt accordingly. So that's what they did. And so far it's been a big success, since the new polls show that it's ranked even maybe in some polls more popular than the regime party and its coalitions, which we've never seen before. We never had a major actor kind of contesting the Serbian Progressive Party, the ruling party. But it also made a lot of other changes. That's why we talk about it as a success story, because according to new polls, for the first time ever in history, Serbian youth are actually more democratic. They're recognizing, okay, participatory democracy, we need to engage. And they prefer that to a strong leader, which happens for the first time ever. So they're more democratic than ever. Also, I mean, I mentioned those polls, but I also mentioned that they managed to get a lot of hundreds of thousands of people on the street, the biggest ever mobilization wave. So basically, it's very, very kind of easy to see how big of a success it is, and hopefully we will see in the electoral race that being finalized and kind of getting to its new heights. So I don't wanna bore you a bit more with the details. I'll leave it to my dear colleague to speak more about her personal experience within the movement. As I said, I was a bit of a researcher. I was tracking the quality of deliberation within plenum, so I had to keep a little bit of a distance, but I helped any way I could. But here's the word to Emilia.
Thank you so much. So hi again, my name is Emilia. I'm a student activist from faculty of Belgrade, and I've been a student activist for a long time. Even before this student protest happened, we actually had some kind of student protest before when we had the tragedy. We had a mass shooting at school 2 years ago, and then we had election frauds, and then we kind of occupied some streets for 24 hours, but nothing like this. I think that was just the beginning of this whole new movement. First of all, from my perspectives, when we ask ourselves, okay, why does this happen? Like, how did we get to this point where all of the students and citizens are mobilized? I think 2 reasons. First of all is when the tragedy happened, I think that even if we knew that Serbia is authoritarian regime, that we do not have rule of law, democracy, we have a mass corruption, at that point every citizen actually understood and felt that that can actually affect their own life. So they can actually die wherever they are. Something can fall on their head because of the corruption and because of lack of democracy. And that really hit hard for the citizens. And for the students, I think that the main point was, you told about the attack on students who were peacefully protesting. So the people from Serbian Progressive Party, from the ruling party, actually attacked students while peacefully protesting on the street. And every camera recorded it, and nobody said from the regime or from a judiciary, or I don't know, nobody said anything. And that... So the Faculty of Dramatic Arts, where they happened, they started the occupation of their faculties, and every other faculty joined because they felt the need for solidarity for their colleagues. So that's, for me, is the 2 reasons for all of this. And I wanted to talk a bit about plenums and where did we get the idea of plenums, actually. And some people would say, oh, that's a leftist idea, that's ideological idea. It has nothing to do in this particular case with left ideology. It's actually practical reasons. Because we, before this, have a lot of crisis of student parliamentary bodies or student democracy, because we had a very bad law on student organizing, and a lot of parliamentary student bodies were controlled by Serbian Progressive Party, because Serbian Progressive Party is everywhere. In every parliamentary or other body, they control everything. So students was like, okay, that's not the place that we can actually talk or debate about the current situation. We need something that can involve all of the students, because the mobilization at that point was the most important thing that we must achieve. So the plenum, the way that we can include everyone, was the successful way of organizing, and that led to every student actually come to plenum, being involved, and for the first time debating about political situation in Serbia. I think that you know that freedom of media in Serbia does not really exist. It's really in bad shape. So I think that the best campaign that student movement actually did was marching across the country, and not just across the country, but marching towards Brussels and Strasbourg as well. So we actually got to some small places, small towns, small villages in Serbia, and actually talked to the people we talk to them and show them that what they're watching or listening at the national regime televisions is not true. And we actually show them that we are here and that we want to fight for them. And for my experience, I'm from Vranje, that's like south part of Serbia, the poorest part. I marched from Vranje to Niš, that's the third largest city in Serbia. And I thought, okay, nobody will support us. This is like the part of Serbia where a Serbian Progressive Party has the most votes. But actually, we faced so much support. I remember one really small poor town. We went there, and the people there actually had all their food taken, and we had red carpet. We have the fireworks, like everything. It was like we won a Nobel Prize. I mean, at that point, we could not eat all that food because there was so many food and all like homemade food, delicious food. And I said to one like older woman, like, please take this food to somebody that doesn't have anything, somebody that is poor. And she said to me, all of us are poor here. We give you everything we had. So at that point, I really felt that these people will give everything because they believe in us and they have hope for democracy and for rule of law and for freedom in Serbia. And yeah. Thank you. And I always cry when I say this story. Because, yeah, it was really, and every protest is so emotional. Everybody cries. Everybody is hugging themselves and like, okay. So, but student movement is really, it has a lot of students, a lot of various opinions, different opinions, and it's really hard to actually say yes to everybody, say yes to some plan. And that's why the decision making in student movement is really slow, is taking a lot of time, because we all have to actually agree on something together. And that's why I think that all of these actions actually were successful, because if we manage by ourselves to agree on something, that the people across the country will actually like what we agreed on. And a lot of social groups actually joined, not just like this citizens assembly, but a lot of social groups such as workers, social workers, professors in high schools, students in high school as well. We also had like health workers, like every social group that you can imagine, they actually joined and had their own kind of protest in their institutions or their workplace. And I must say that right now we do have some political prisoners in Serbia. We do have students, my friends, who are in exile. They cannot cross the border. They cannot enter Serbia because they will be arrested and charged for terrorism and overthrow of constitutional order. We have students and young people who are in house custody and who are being beaten every day, who are being threatened to be raped, and some policemen are doing that as well. So security and safety of students is really bad right now. And honestly, every day I fear that some of my colleagues and some of my friends will be arrested, beaten, or worse. I don't know. I cannot imagine what can happen to them. So I think that when I talk to you, what I want to say is that we also need international support. We need to spread the word. We need to spread the word to people everywhere in Europe or some other countries. And we need also international institutional help from some maybe politicians that can support this democratic revolution that is happening in Serbia. So spread the word, talk about what's happening in Serbia, support students in every way you can, because we really need and we really would appreciate that. So yeah, thank you.